Good evening from Mountain Patriot Homestead. With the darkness settling in and the fog blanketing the mountain today, I thought it would be a good time to share another story. So let's go to another Tales in the Dark, The Beginning. This one began in 1977, not long after our family had bought and moved into an old house. This house sat back against a pine forest and was surrounded by oak trees as well, but mostly it was pine because the land adjoining it was owned by Louisiana Pacific Pine. And so this little house was just kind of tucked into the forest and visible from the highway, but it just kind of set back in there so well that you almost didn't notice it because of where it was. This house had previously been used as a parsonage and had been moved where it sat when my parents purchased it. The old parsonage had been unoccupied for some time and was kind of in ill repair. There was a lot of trash left behind by previous tenants. They had left it piled outside, inside. Looked like they had painted the house with whatever paint was on sale, and so there was a lot of things that had to be fixed in the house. But thankfully, my dad was a master carpenter, and my mom, she could wield a paintbrush like nobody's business. So between the two of them, and then of course me and my little sister helping, the house soon became a home and we got settled in. Now, we were outside people, kind of like me and my husband are now. We spent a lot of time outside, and with the big pine forest next to us and then a hardwood forest behind it, it just begged to be explored. So we spent a lot of time exploring in the woods around it. This house also, the land on it came with several outbuildings. Two were old log construction, like little miniature log cabins, except it was just little outbuildings. My dad went in and reinforced them so we could use them for storage and, as an old barn and that sort of thing. And he also reinforced and rebuilt an old shop that was there because with him being a carpenter, he needed somewhere for his tools and he needed somewhere to work when the weather got bad outside. As I said, we got settled in and we were happy with our new home. It was new to us and nothing seemed off. I mean, everything seemed perfect. We were enjoying being where we were and everything was perfect. Now, my dad was working pretty methodically on getting the house ready for us. We were living in it, but he was also trying, if you've ever tried to live in a house and fix up a house at the same time, you know how much work that actually entails. And so this old house, he was slowly, a room at a time. We weren't a wealthy family, so it was as money came, with him doing his carpentry work and Mama worked at a store. A little bit at a time trying to get things put together, but Daddy was working room by room, getting things fixed up. And while that happened, me and my little sister were sharing a room. Now, that wasn't the highlight of my childhood, I must say, not because my little sister was that big of a problem, but she tended to sleep curled in a ball, and somehow her feet always ended up in my back. So I'd been promised my own bedroom, and though I didn't whine to my parents about it because I know they were doing the best they could, I was really hoping that bedroom was going to be forthcoming really soon. But until that time, that room that was going to be mine was being used for storage. So one night I was laying there wishing I could sleep on the porch because I did do that quite a bit in warmer weather. But that night I was just laying there. My little sister was curled up with her feet in the normal position. And it was too cold to sleep on the porch. And so I was laying there awake. And I heard a sound that I recognized, but I couldn't put my finger on it, what it was. And I'm sure that you've done that with sounds or smells, or maybe even you've seen something you couldn't quite place. It looked familiar, or it sounded familiar, or smelled familiar, but you just couldn't quite recognize what it was. Well, I was laying there and I was listening to something, and I know what this sound is, but I shouldn't be hearing this sound. What am I hearing? And so I just lay there, and you know how you'll kind of hold your breath when you're listening, so it's just a little bit quieter. And I was holding my breath, and I was listening, and I turned over to hear it a little better. And it was then that I realized that it was my mom's old manual typewriter. And I think it was one of the Underwood, the old Underwood brand typewriters. And they had real hard keys to use, especially for a kid's fingers. And if you tried to type on it too fast, the keys all jammed up and you'd have to pull them apart. And it had the old ribbon in it. And I realized that's my mom's typewriter. And it was just clacking away. I mean, it was going pretty fast. And I was thinking, the first thing I thought was, why can't I ever type that? Because every time I'd ever tried to use it, all it did was the keys all bunched up in one big glob. And then it kind of, I stopped. It made me think, wait a second, that's in the storage room. That's in the other room. There's not anybody in there. Because at that time, before my dad made another door to go into that room, there was only one door that went into it, and that was through the bedroom I was sleeping in, or should have been sleeping in. And I knew nobody had come through that room. And so I realized, wait, I'm not dreaming. I'm hearing somebody typing, and I know nobody has went through my room. Why would Mama even be in that room typing in the middle of the night in a storage room? So I sat up in bed and I started hollering for my parents. The typing, of course, immediately stopped. Everybody in the house is awake. Of course, they search the house because they want to make sure that nobody's in it, and to kind of appease, their daughter, who is trying to figure out who in the world is typing in the middle of the night. And to my parents' credit, they never accused me of making up things or dreaming, and they just kind of accepted it as a nighttime oddity, and everybody just go to sleep, it'll be okay in the morning. So nothing else happened that we noticed for some time, and that occurrence was forgotten. Now, over a period of time, a new addition joined our family, and that came in the form of a big black lab dog that just appeared out of nowhere one day, and it immediately became a family member. We loved that dog, and his name was, we called him Hobo because he just showed up, and Hobo was, we trusted him as a protector. He protected me and my little sister. If we were outside playing, he was right there with us. He was our constant companion. And there was nothing that this dog was ever afraid of. He didn't back down from anything. And at night, he slept near either the front or back door, and we had confidence that nothing was going to get past that dog. Now, eventually my bedroom got finished and I moved into it, and I decorated it with little trinkets and bits of fabric and things that my mama gave me from her sewing box and her stashes of things. And I was so proud of that room. Of course, it wasn't anything fancy that anybody else would have thought was anything, but I was really proud of my bedroom, and I had little tassels hanging from little shelves, and just it now that I look back at it, it was probably kind of pitiful, but I thought it looked good. And I was so proud of that room. And so I spent a lot of my time in there in the evenings after dark, because I like to read, and I was just so proud to have my own room. So one night I was standing in front of my bedroom mirror and I was brushing my hair. And there were two big windows to my back, and it was a dark night. Hobo was outside. I could hear the rest of my family talking in another part of the house. And so we coon hunted and all of that. Like I said, we were outside people. And so the dark never bothered me. So, having dark windows to my back, I'd never thought anything of it. And anyway, I'm standing there and I'm brushing my hair, and I still have my brush in my hand, and I see a light flicker across my mirror. And I look up, because it reflected in my mirror, and I looked up and I watched this light, like a beam from a flashlight, go all the way around the room up against the ceiling. And it traveled the full perimeter of my bedroom near the ceiling, and I thought maybe my daddy was outside for some reason. Now, being the huge daddy's girl that I was, if he was going outside for some reason, I wanted to go too. So I raced through the house. Like I said, at the time there was only one door that went into that room. So I raced through the house, and as I passed through the living room, I noticed that my mom, dad, and little sister were sitting at the dining room table that adjoined the living room, and they were just sitting there talking. And I came to a stop, and I was telling them, somebody's outside and they're shining a flashlight in my room. It didn't dawn on me that it was impossible for a flashlight to completely circle the ceiling like it did. And I didn't even mention that part because like I said, I had it in my mind. My mind couldn't understand that it was anything else other than a flashlight. And so there was just somebody shining a light in my room. Well, my dad was already getting up from his seat, because if anybody was messing around his house, they were fixing to answer to him. And so I was barely through saying there's somebody outside. My dad was getting up, and there was a knock, just a pounding on the door of the house, so loud and so hard that the entire house shook. Now, that sounds like an exaggeration, but it really wasn't. This house, it sounded like somebody was beating on the side of it with a truck. I mean, it was just that loud. Pictures were shaking on the walls. It was so loud. Well, in a flash, my dad, there was always firearms around our house for protection. We as children knew not to mess with those unless, we were being taken out to go hunting or something. And so my dad grabbed one that was right there, and he headed for the door. But before he got to the door, Hobo, who we had never seen scared of anything, hit the door so hard he almost came through it. He was afraid, and he was trying to get into the house and away from whatever it was that he thought he saw. Well, this didn't stop my daddy. My daddy wasn't scared of nothing. And he went out the door with a gun at one door. Now, my mama, I said my dad wasn't scared of nothing. The only thing he was scared of was my mama. And she went out the other door also armed. And they circled the house in opposite directions. Hobo, now that he had backup, he was there with them. I was left in the house with my little sister, just listening, waiting to see what, were they gonna find somebody? What was it? And they circled the house, and they looked around anywhere anybody could have been hiding. They found nothing. There were no prints, and my daddy could track. And so even the next day, there were no prints. There were no tracks. There was no sign of anybody. There was nothing outside. And that was the beginning. So thank you for listening to another story of Tales in the Dark from Mountain Patriot Homestead. I hope you've enjoyed this one, and if you did, please click the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and if you have, thank you so much for being part of the Mountain Patriot Homestead family. If you want to hear more of these stories, please comment down below. Let me know if you like these, and I'll continue telling these stories of things that just happened around our home as I was growing up. Regardless, please come back again to visit real soon. Have a peaceful and safe evening. Mountain Patriot Homestead, signing out.